Week 3 of Big Brother 28 came to a close much like the 2 weeks before it. A lot of mess, a lot of potential for an exciting outcome heading into Thursday's eviction, only for the most predictable result to happen. Jason was evicted by a unanimous 12-0 vote after losing the blockbuster to Mallory by mere seconds in what was the closest blockbuster competition maybe of all time. It's a shame we didn't get the more interesting voting scenario between Mallory and Lala, but it's also a shame to see Jason's time in the house come to an end. I know opinions are mixed on Jason, but I really enjoyed him this season. I thought he was great TV, and the way that he got ostracized this week and painted out as a crazy person wasn't necessarily fair, and losing Rome and Jason in back-to-back weeks is really damning for the other side of the house. Those were two of their biggest figureheads, two of their biggest competition threats, and now they're both gone. If anyone wants to take a shot at the vets, they're running out of people capable of doing it. So what does week 4 look like? Is it finally time to write one of the vets a check, or is it possible that an upset can still happen? But before we jump into these rankings, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. We'll be searching for a winner all season long. Let's see if we can get to 300 subscribers by the end of this week. Also, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by checking out my wife's Depop. Tell her Treeb sent you. And without further ado, let's dive into these player rankings. Coming in at dead last at number 14 and going up one spot, I have Latrice. I believe Latrice is the first player to be in dead last in back-to-back weeks, and I think for as long as she's going to be in the house, she is going to be my last ranked player. This was kind of a nothing burger week for Latrice. In fact, I literally didn't write a single note about her, and I think that's the first time that's happened to anybody all season. Haley did say that she sees a little bit of Chelsea in Latrice, which was just kind of racist. Overall, I still think Latrice is in one of the worst spots in the house and probably has the lowest win equity of anyone left. Plus, she's been called out many times in the feeds and episodes for not really understanding the game, and I think that theory has some legs. Coming in at number 13 and going down 8 spots, I have my boy Drew. Angela and Dee have pretty much successfully turned the entire house against Drew. It's honestly really sad to watch because just a couple of weeks ago, he was arguably the best position player in the game. Kamu held on to trusting Drew longer than anybody because he's a big evidence guy and no one was really giving him any. But then Devens, one of Drew's supposed closest allies, completely sold him out, and that was basically the final nail in his coffin. The most frustrating part is just how oblivious Drew is to everything happening around him. He kept trying to save Mallory last week, kept talking about crossover meetings, and kept talking about targeting people like Kamu, Chuk, and Haley when those aren't even the people that are coming after him. I also didn't love how passive he was this week and last week. He had opportunities to push his own agenda and rally votes for Mallory, but instead he just bent at the knee to the vets. It's kind of the same issue with him throwing HOHs week after week. He refuses to acknowledge where he actually sits in the game, and because of that, he never fights when he needs to. All week, Drew was saying little things that made it seem like he had a power that could get him out of all this mess, and everyone online was convinced he had the BB coin flip, I believe it's called, and was just saving it for one day to anonymously flip his own nominations, and then he gets put on the block and nothing happens. Everyone was thinking that he was going to be voted out with a power in his pocket, which is adding to the Drew lore of how can you be this dumb. But on Sunday's episode, we found out that Dee had the power, and that was at least a little bit of a sigh of relief, but it just adds to the whole story of Drew this week. He's constantly acting like he's got something up his sleeve when in reality, he's just completely behind the 8 ball. At one point, Devens basically cornered him into spilling his entire game plan, and Drew just did. At every turn, he's getting shut down, sold out, or talked down to, and he still isn't putting together that his position has completely collapsed. He finally hit the block this week, and even then, he still doesn't think that he's the target. People like Devens and Haley have practically slipped up right in front of him and told him that he's in danger, and he still isn't picking up on it. He even said that if he felt pressure, he'd blow up the red corner minus Dee and Devens, the two people actively orchestrating his downfall. Overall, this is just an all-time fall from grace. I still think Drew has all the tools to be a pretty solid Big Brother player, but his inability to read the room has been his complete undoing. Coming in at number 12 and going down 3 spots, I have Melody. Haley winning the HOH did not sit well with Melody. She even said, if I was watching this season, I'd be like, what the fuck is happening? And honestly, this might have been the best read of the entire season. She's back on the block, but I don't actually think she's the target. It feels like Drew, Mallory, or even Lyric would all girl go before her. Still, I expect Melody to be one of the most active players this week in trying to save herself and her allies. She spent a lot of time clashing with Haley, especially after Haley called her a mean girl. Haley has been talking about that conversation nonstop, while Melody has taken real offense to it. It's not much now, but I could see this turning into a really fun rivalry down the line. The biggest problem for Melody is that she's trying really hard, but nobody is listening. Her allies keep getting picked off one by one, and her reads don't carry that much weight, and most of the house seems to view her as a non-factor. Overall, I think she's in a really tough spot. I appreciate how hard she plays, but at this point, she's going to need something pretty dramatic to flip the trajectory of her game. Coming in at number 11 and going down 5 spots, I have Lyric. Lyric has fully shifted into survival mode, and honestly, I love the way she's playing. After Jason's unanimous eviction, she immediately started pitching people like Kamu that she tried working with the other side. They were getting picked off one by one, and now it was time to switch allegiances. That's a very self-preserving move, which I love. She's also continued weaponizing her social game. This week, she really turned the charm on with Kamu, while still maintaining what she's got with Chuk and to a lesser extent Yash. The hot tub flirting with Kamu honestly reminded me of old school Big Brother, and it's something we really haven't seen much of in recent seasons, and I actually really love this approach from her. After neither Drew nor Barrett had the guts to vote against the house and keep Jason or Mallory, Lyric and Yash ended up forming a final 2. I just think that's hilarious. Imagine being 2 super fans of the show and getting outgamed by a crypto bro and a woman who got verbally assaulted by Katy Perry on American Idol. I mean, that's unreal, but I honestly really do like this pair. One thing Lyric does exceptionally well is making herself look wounded instead of dangerous. People don't really view her as a threat, and I think that's been one of the biggest reasons she's been able to survive despite being on the outside. The problem is that none of her danger this week really came from her own gameplay. Kamu pushed so hard to replace Drew with Lyric in the red corner that Haley got annoyed and basically made Lyric her replacement nominee out of spite. It wasn't anything Lyric did wrong, it was someone else going to bat for her a little bit too hard. My one concern is that she threw Mallory completely under the bus to Chuk while trying to stay off the block. If that gets back to Mallory, it could create some real problems for her moving forward. Overall, I still think Lyric is one of the more adaptable players in the house. She's constantly looking for her next path forward, and even when things go wrong, it's usually because of other people, not because she's making bad decisions herself. I still think she's got a lot of game left if she can survive this week. Coming in at number 10 and going up 4 spots, we have Mallory, her highest placement of the season, I believe. Mallory survived one of the closest blockbusters we've ever seen against Jason, and once again, she finds herself with her back against the wall. I really do feel for her because this girl just cannot catch a break. That being said, you do have to give her credit. Every time she's in danger, she competes well and handles the pressure about as well as she can. She also got pinned as one of the people who might have the mystery power this week, mostly from Devens and Angela because they're not aware that Dee has it. I think that's actually brought the vets a little closer to her and shifted some of her focus towards Haley. I also thought she had a really important conversation with Haley yesterday, I believe. Haley assured her she was never going to be the replacement nominee, and Mallory returned the favor by saying she was not going to target Haley. I think there was probably a little bit of fabrication from both sides here, but it was still a valuable conversation for Mallory to have, in my opinion. Overall, I still think Mallory is in a really tough spot. She's done an admirable job surviving week after week, but it feels like she's constantly playing defense instead of ever being able to improve her position. Coming in at number 9 and going down 2 spots, I have Barrett. If we're constantly giving Chuk crap for not giving us anything on the feeds, then we have to start giving Barrett his fair share too, because this guy stinks. He might be the biggest disappointment of the season for me. The one positive is that he seems to be getting some of that spark back with Dee, and that's huge for his longevity. I actually thought splitting up would help him, but it turns out outside of Dee, all he really had was Drew and a little bit of Mallory, and at this point, those aren't exactly premium allies. At least with Dee, he can stick around even if I don't think he can win. I'm still just not impressed with him. He even told Dee about the potential flip to keep Mallory last week, and it just feels like he's constantly aloof to where he actually stands in the game, and whenever it seems like he becomes aware of where he stands, he does nothing to change it. The bigger issue is that he's become exactly what I was worried he'd become, the stereotypical passive superfan who's bending at the knee to the vets. He lacks agency, he lacks conviction, and every time there's a chance to make a move, he just doesn't. The biggest example was when Devens was pressing Drew and Barrett on where their votes were going last week. Devens basically said, "We could save Mallory for you, Barrett," and Barrett's response was essentially, "Well, I don't want to put you out. I don't want you to stick your neck out for little old me." Brother, This is an individual game. What are we doing here? Drew literally sat Barrett down and told him, I think we're falling out of favor with Drew and Devens. And Barrett's response was basically no shot. There's no way that's happening. Then Drew starts bringing up these red flags, even saying maybe the icons are the real masterminds, and Barrett still doesn't see it, saying I would be shocked. Then Barrett gets brought into the fact that Drew is the target and does absolutely nothing with it. That's your top ally, the guy you've wanted to go deep with all season, and you don't even try to push back. I said before the season that I wasn't going to get fooled by the superfans again, and then Drew and Barrett sucked me right back in. Barrett does Big Brother podcasts. He knows this game. He should be so much better than this, and that's why he's so frustrating. I just don't think he's played a good game at all. Coming in at number 8, and I can't believe she's ranked this high, and going up 3 spots, I have this week's HOH, Haley. Haley winning HOH was about the best case scenario the red corner could have asked for, because she was basically willing to do the vets' dirty work for them. They didn't have to expose themselves, and Haley was more than happy to take the shot. The problem is, I just wasn't impressed with her reads. Her initial plan was to nominate Taylor, Drew, and Melody with Taylor as the target, which is just crazy to me. To Devens' credit, he pointed out that if you're going to nominate Drew, you either need to fully commit and take the shot or don't do it at all. Haley never really wanted to take that shot, which made this whole plan feel pretty half-baked. I also found it funny that just a week ago, Haley was talking about wanting to get one of the men out of the house, and then this week she was basically looking for any excuse to put a man on the block because she didn't want to nominate 3 women with the plan of targeting a woman. Her rivalry with Melody is definitely heating up, and I actually think this is one of the more entertaining dynamics in the house right now. But much like Kamu's HOH last week, I think Haley winning power actually lowered her standing with the other side. Then Taylor wins the veto, completely blowing up Haley's plan. Haley even called it the worst case scenario, maybe for her, but I think just about everyone else was rooting for literally anyone besides Drew or Melody to win the competition. Overall, I thought Haley had a pretty rough HOH. She had a case of HOH-itis, her reads were all over the place, and despite having power, I don't think she really improved her long-term position. If anything, I think she's still going to be one of the bigger targets once her reign is over. Coming in at number 7, and again, I don't know how this person is this high, and going up 3 spots, I have Chuk. Chuk continues to have one of the more unfavorable perceptions in the house, and the really concerning part is that even Kamu has started to cool on him a little bit. He told Dee that something feels off about Chuk because of what he's doing in the HOH competitions, competing for them or throwing them. About the only noteworthy thing Chuk did this week was tell Angela that Yash was throwing her name around, which is fair play considering Angela is probably one of his closest allies. Outside of that, he really didn't do a whole lot of anything, and that's kind of been Chuk's entire game. We don't really know much about him because he doesn't really give the viewers anything, and it doesn't seem like he's giving the house much either. Coming in at number 6 and going up 2 spots, I have Taylor. I actually thought Taylor was positioning herself extremely well early last week. She was strengthening her relationship with Kamu and Devens through that Tether Alliance idea, and she was one of the loudest voices pushing to keep Jason and Mallory because she recognized it was the better move for her game. Then everything changed. At the last minute, she decided she couldn't vote out Lala because of their personal relationship, and maybe to a lesser extent she didn't want to upset the other side after making a stronger relationship with Kamu and Devens. The problem is she ended up upsetting both sides anyway. The outsiders started looking at her sideways because she couldn't do the vote, and eventually the vets found out that she had been considering the flip, so they got irritated as well. That's what makes this week so brutal for Taylor. She thought she was making the moves that would keep everybody happy, but in reality she just gave both sides a reason to distrust her. I do think Taylor deserves credit for one thing though. People naturally seem to like her. Even though Haley came into this week wanting Taylor out, one conversation was basically enough to cool her off. Taylor is really good at mirroring people and making them feel comfortable around her, and I think that's one of her biggest strengths. On top of that, she's starting to get a lot more credit than I think she's earned. Haley's comparing Taylor and Latrice to Chelsea felt pretty ridiculous and racist to me. Thankfully for Taylor, none of that ends up mattering this week because she goes out and wins the veto. Coming in at number 5 and going up 8 spots, I have Yash. I like Yash. I actually got into a little debate with someone in my comments last week about where I had him ranked, and you know what? They were right. I should have had him higher, and I'm man enough to admit when I was wrong. I still don't think that his win equity is through the roof because I think a lot of people still look at him as someone you could drag to the end, but over the last couple of weeks, he's really stepped things up strategically. He and Taylor were probably the 2 biggest driving forces behind trying to flip the vote to keep either Jason or Mallory. I like that he's actively trying trying to change the game instead of just accepting where the numbers lie. He's also built connections all over the house. He's got the Dapper Dans, a 3-person group with Devens and Kamu, a really solid one-on-one relationship with Taylor, and now a surprisingly good partnership with Lyric. I honestly think he's playing the Drew game better than Drew because he's making all these connections without making himself a house target. The next step for Yash is that he just needs to win power. If he can actually win an HOH and take one of the shots he's been talking about, I think his winner chances go up by quite a bit. The downside is it'll probably make him a bigger target after the fact, but at some point you need agency if you want to win this game. Overall though, this is the highest I've been on Yash all season, and I'm starting to see the vision. I still have questions about whether he can actually win, but he's put himself in one of the safest positions in the house, and I have a hard time seeing a scenario where he doesn't at least make the jury. Coming in at number 4 and not going up or down any spots, I have Kamu. I still think Kamu is in a good spot, but not nearly as good as the one he was coming out of his HOH week. I think his stock has definitely started to trend downward. The biggest reason is that he's getting misted hard by Lyric. He spent so much time vouching for her to the red corner that it's starting to rub his own allies the wrong way. They're beginning to question why he's going so hard for someone who was just on the other side. I also think the Tea Party meeting hurt his perception more than we initially thought, made him look a little more controlling, and I don't think that he's recovered from that. On top of that, people like Drew and Barrett are starting to look at him sideways, and I think the Melody and the Mallorys of the world are probably putting him on the block now too, even if Haley would still be the preferred target. Compared to last week, he just doesn't have the same number of strong one-on-one relationships. He still has people, but it feels like some of those bonds have weakened over the last several days. Overall, I still like Kamu's game more than most, but I definitely think he's taken a step back. He's gone from someone I thought was in one of the best positions in the house to someone who's starting to lose a little bit of the social capital that made him so dangerous. Coming in at number 3 and not going up or down any spots, we have Angela. Angela spent the end of last week continuing to tank Drew's game, telling Kamu that Drew was trying to save Mallory, which, to be fair, Angela also wanted to do. Prime Angela paranoia slop. Then she took it a step further by telling Kamu that Drew wanted to target both the red corner and the vets. I think this week showed the downside of Angela's game more than ever. She has a ton of influence, but sometimes she just invents problems that don't exist. She even had a cam talk where she said she knew Drew was coming after her, and that's why she had to take the shot. Angela, if only you knew how badly Drew wanted to work with you. The other thing I'm starting to notice is that people are getting tired of the paranoia. Devens has shown signs of it, Yash has rubbed up against it, and it feels like Angela is beginning to wear some of her allies down. Overall, I still think Angela is in a really good spot because of her relationships that she's built, but unlike the first couple of weeks, her paranoia is starting to create real cracks. Coming in at number 2 and not going up or down any spots, I have Dee. Dee has quietly reeled Barrett back onto her side, and I think that's a huge win for her. Even if it's terrible for Barrett's game, he's back to feeding her information, especially about Drew, and that's just another number firmly in Dee's corner. Kamu also told Dee that he trusts her more than Chuk and Haley. Dee didn't really believe him, but honestly, I think he might be telling the truth. At this point, she might legitimately be his second closest ally behind Devens. I also loved how she handled Angela this week. When Angela started questioning the Mallory vote, Dee simply framed it as keeping Mallory is what Drew wants. She knows Angela doesn't want to do what Drew wants, so that's exactly how you have to pitch it to her. It was just hilarious, but it was also really smart and it worked. Then Big Brother decided to hand Dee the BB bribe, which is just ridiculous. I mean, why are we voting for vets 3 weeks in a row? Like, literally, if you voted for Angela, Dee, and Devens, or I guess Angela, Devens, and then Dee, back to back to back to get a power, you are an NPC fucking loser. Like, why are we doing this? That makes no sense. But Dee got the BB bribe, and she can literally pay any player to change a game action at any point for the rest of the season. That's an absurd power to give someone who's already one of the best position players in the house. The one thing that I did like is that she kept the power to herself. She didn't even tell Devens, and I actually think that's the right move. With how long the power lasts, there's no reason to burn it early or let people plan around it. Honestly, I even wonder if she's thinking long term and is saving it for something like buying a jury vote, which would be the best way to probably use something like this, especially if the timetable is for the end of the game, which is crazy. Big Brother production, just hand them the win. Just hand Devens and Dee the final 2. This is crazy. Why are we doing this? Overall, Dee continues to sit in an incredible position. Barrett, Haley, and Kamu are all voluntarily feeding her information. She's barely been mentioned as his target, and now she has a power that could potentially buy her a jury vote. If anyone was going to get this power, it probably should not have been Dee, especially when you're voting for this and you know that you want a power shift. Why in the world would you vote for a third vet in a row after the season that we've had? This is absolutely crazy. How are they not rigging this? I hardly doubt. Hey, really, America? You're doing this? Is crazy. And coming in at number 1 and not going up or down any spots, I still have Devens. Even though I hate that he's going after my boy Drew, I have to give Devens his flowers. The way that he explained to Kamu why Drew needed to go was miles better than anything Angela or Dee had done. They were pitching it from emotion, while Devens pitched it from Kamu's perspective and explained why it benefited his game, and that's just good, big brother. It worked too, and after that conversation, Kamu basically said Devens was his number 1 guy, which is absolutely massive considering where Kamu was just a couple weeks ago. Devens has really become the kingpin of this house. Players like Drew, Barrett, and even Taylor are all terrified of getting on his bad side. And when you combine that with a diamond power of veto, it's honestly an absurd amount of power to have this early in the game. We even saw it when he pressed Drew about where his vote was. Drew basically just bent the knee and told Devens everything that he wanted to hear. That's the kind of influence Devens has over people right now. At this point, there just aren't many people left who wouldn't check in with Devens if they won HOH or at least care what he thinks. And if someone outside of his sphere of influence does win and takes a shot at one of his allies or him, he could always just pull out the diamond power of veto, and that's a scary combination. It was even one of the biggest voices in getting the target shifted from Taylor to Drew, all while maintaining a good enough relationship with Drew and Barrett that they still don't fully realize what's happening. My bold prediction is that Devens won't even need to use his diamond power of veto. His social positioning is so strong right now that people are already making moves that he wants without him having to cash it in. That's about as dominant as a position as you can ask for in week number 4. And that was my Big Brother 28 week number 4 power rankings. What'd you guys think? Did I have everybody too high, too low? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to leave your rankings in the comments down below and to check the links down below. Buy something for my wife's Depop. Check out my articles. Tell me how broken this game is. This is all just a bunch of bullshit anyway, right, guys? Right. And while you're at it, too, follow me on Twitter at Treeb Talks. We tweet a lot about Big Brother over there. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.